The Nigerian power sector has encountered a variety of difficulties over the years, including technical and commercial misalignment. On Wednesday, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission said that the federal government paid a total of 135.23 billion to subsidize electricity consumption in the second quarter of 2023. This was made known in the Commission's Q2 2023 report. NERC said that the 132.2 billion was spent by the federal government to plug revenue generation shortfall in the power sector. In this period under review, it said that it indicated that an increase of 99.21 billion, representing 275% compared to the 36 billion paid in the quarter one of 2023. The report stated that the government incurred a subsidy obligation of 135.25 billion in 2023 Q2, which is substantially higher than the 36.02 billion it incurred in 2023 Q1. The report said on average, subsidy obligation incurred by the government per month was 44.08 billion in Q2 2023. So joining us now on the show is David Adetunji Adeyeye, energy expert and regulatory specialist at the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors. Great to have you. Let's talk about the need to be able to tell ourselves the truth, which we don't do too much in this country. At first, they said electricity subsidy was yanked off already. Now we are seeing those subsidies again. What is going on?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Nigerians. Yeah. Okay, let me start on a very realistic and positive note. I would say for power sector, the glass is half full, not half empty. Now, subsidy, one way or the other, is always been in the power sector. Though invisible, it's always there. So let me start since 2013. Government through CBN provided the NEMS fund, that's a stabilization fund for the discos to sort of cover the gap that was created by cost reflective and the allowed tariff. There's a gap there. After that, the government provided the payment assurance guarantee of about 710 billion, also to cushion that effect. Then, after all of that, now that this government came in, they felt that they need to address the market shortfall. So what is causing the market shortfall? The allowed tariff, which is set by NEC, the regulator, is not cost reflective. That means that the generation company, distribution and transmission are selling power to Nigeria at a very artificially suppressed price to their cost. So because that's a decision of government, somebody needs to fund it for the whole power sector to work. So, and that has been creating a lot of problems, causing inefficiency in the sector. So through NEC, government felt we need to make the system work. So therefore, let us find a way to consistently and timely pay for that gap. So what they're not doing on a monthly basis, the difference in the shortfall, that's the tariff shortfall between your allowed tariff and the regulated price that government is allowing to sell, government is directly paying the bulk trader, so MBET. MBET covers the cost of energy. So MBET is the one that buys electricity on behalf of Nigeria and sell to the disco to distribute to Nigerians, right? So, and there's also another cost element, which is the transmission cost and ancillary charges of the sector. So government is saying that you must pay MBET 100% because MBET needs to pay the generation company who pays the gas company. Today in Nigeria, we have about 18 power stations that are gas. Only 4 is hydro. So these 18, they have a take or pay contract for gas supplies. Otherwise, they won't be able to produce power. And so long that the money does not come in quickly to them, you would have also challenge in production of electricity. So what government now quickly did was, okay, on a monthly basis, just to make sure that the back end is secure, we'll be addressing the difference in the shortfall. So they're not necessarily giving the disco the money, they're just reducing their debt to MBET, who pays the gas company.
But so, what subsidy is government even paying on electricity? Electricity that people don't see to use in the first place. And that's why a lot of people are saying, government should remove, because these are part of the things that make the government very encumbered. You're paying subsidies that we don't even see how many hours are people getting this so-called electricity.
Okay, Rufai, earlier on, before we got on here, we were talking about the impact of the government harmonization of the forest, the exchange rate. Now, if you allow the discos or the power sector to charge the true cost allowing the impact of forests, nobody in Nigeria will be able to pay for electricity. Because today, as we speak, dollar is about 155 naira, right? So, to a dollar. So if you allow that, 1,155, thank you. So if you allow that, the cost of power becomes unsustainable. So that's why you must find a cushion that works, because you need power. Power is vital to run your economy, to run your homes. So it's something that government must have a hand on it until we increase the capacity as an economy and the capacity of Nigeria to earn, to be able to pay for electricity through cost. And generally, worldwide, there is always some sort of subsidy in power sector, because it's a highly capitalized industry. So Nigeria is not really doing something that is abnormal, but just in our own case, the shortfall is really bigger. And that's why government would have to continuously put in significant amount of resources to cover that gap, at least to make the system work, so that there is gas, and when there's gas, we can produce the little energy that we have, and then we can distribute it, and at least we keep the economy going.
All right. I mean, thank you for breaking it down, but it's interesting to note that in the last administration, famously, the Minister of Finance had mentioned that they had covertly done away with subsidy by some, calculations and machinations. However, as you've explained, because of the realities of the cost of electricity, it is impossible to continue to ask people to pay for the amount of electricity. So my question is, was there a time really where electricity subsidy was truly gone, where government paid nothing? Number two is there a possibility of going back there? Because you're saying that in other parts of the world, even in developed countries, government still pays some form of subsidy because of the cost of energy. Energy cost is almost impossible for people to pay for it. So was that statement then true? And then what magic did they perform to be able to ensure that they didn't pay subsidy vis-a-vis what we have currently? And I mean, maybe let me let you answer that first.
Thank you. Okay. To answer your first question, subsidy wasn't really gone at any time in our market. In fact,
so they lied?
No, well, they didn't lie. They did some arrangements. So before, the shortfall was not addressed timelessly, right? So they allowed the shortfall to build, and then there was problem. They then need bigger money to actually pay Embed, that's the guys that buy electricity that sell to this, to pay the gas company who are threatening to shut down the tap, right? So in those instances, we then need to go look. At one time, they look at a single tranche, 701 billion, just at one time, and then they put it for a couple of months. The money didn't last more than 3 months. So what they've now done since is, first of all, to create minimum remittance obligation by the disco. You know, the disco is the one that collects money for the whole chain. So they said, disco, you have to collect certain amount and make sure you pay that amount to Embed for energy charge, right? So disco were not also able to meet that obligation for different reasons. Energy theft, the impact of the shortfall on their balance book, on their balance sheet, and a lot of things. Now the government now said, okay, you know what? We would now timelessly, every month, address that shortfall by intervention. So they set the minimum remittance. So whatever minimum remittance a disco A must make to the market, they will now look at, did you make that minimum remittance? If you do, okay, there is another component of that charges, right? They will now look what is left versus what is the shortfall that has been caused to the disco by the absence of cost reflective, and pay to Embed on a monthly basis. So if you see for the past few months, it's been average of maybe 40-something billion that government had injected as subsidy, paying the debt of the disco directly to Embed. But since June-May, when the harmonization of the forest came in, that cost went through the roof, because the gas company are charging they're allowing the dollar rate to pass through their cost, and the same thing to Embed, who is buying electricity for the discos to sell to Nigeria, and are also allowing to pass through to the disco. But the discos are not allowed to charge a tariff that recognizes the forest impact to customer. So government is now immediately, on a monthly basis, plugging that shortfall. That's what is happening. So yes, subsidy has been invisible, but it's always there from day one. Different government arrangement. Currently, they gave TCN loan to increase capacity so that more energy can flow to Nigeria. That's some form. It's a long-term loan, but it's also some form of intervention. So there are different things government is doing just to make sure there's not rate shock in Nigeria for electricity. Secondly, you talked about how did other countries get it right that they are not injecting as much subsidy in the power sector as we are doing. First of all, the power sector is also a reflection of our economy, right? Our economy is struggling as a whole, so you need to address infrastructure. First of all, you need to address the gas supply issues. Even though we're a country rich in gas resources, we don't still produce enough gas for our own need, let alone even for power. So there's still constraint in the supply of gas. And to do that, you have to really invest in gas. That's the one. You also have to invest in your infrastructure, invest in your health system. So it's a whole lot of things that other countries have been able to do in the short term and sustainably, and that reduces their own intervention power. But for Nigeria to really, Nigerian government to reduce intervention power, it's a derivative of other action and causes. So it's going to take us a long while. But however, I started by saying the glass is half full, not half empty, because currently the government is doing what they call the Presidential Power Initiative, and that's to bring in Siemens and Germany to help us quickly reduce where there is constraint on the value chain. Okay. So they are going to reduce constraint in the transmission lines, strengthen some of the transmission lines. They are going to bring equipment for the distribution part of it. They are also going to look at the generation so that the available capacity for electricity we have as a country for generation is about 10,000 megawatt. To make sure that they remove all the constraints, that generation company will be able to really generate 10,000 megawatt. And then when they do, they would also, all those projects are going on, they would also be able to transmit that 10,000 megawatt through TCN, and TCN would also be able to give it to the DISCO to distribute to Nigeria. So it's taking time. I think they are at about award of different contracts. They are mobilizing to site. That will take about 2 or 3 years before you see all those constraints being reduced. But it's getting way better by the day. We just have to keep looking for money to fund the system until we get more volume in electricity.
Glass being half full sounds like good news to me. But in the midst of that, my question will start with, first, please let me understand or confirm for us. Is it true that we're generating or we have capacity to generate up to 10,000 megawatts? Which one is it? Do we have the capacity or we're generating up to that? Okay,
so there are two things about capacity generally. There is installed capacity. So for this studio has installed capacity of people it can take. And there's the available capacity. So even though this studio may have up to facility for 4 people, do we have 4 chairs to seat 4 people as of today? And so in Nigeria today, there's an installed capacity of most of the generation company up to about 10,000 megawatt. But are they able to make available 10,000 megawatt today? No. One of these is gas constraint. So sometimes gas is not available, sometimes there's interruption in the pipeline, sometimes also you have scheduled maintenances of all your turbines. So we are not able.
Sorry to interject, because I just want us to quickly address a couple of things that you've said. Now, if you say we've got installed capacity 10,000 megawatts, and we're not generating up to that.
We're doing about 4,300.
About 4,300.
Today.
And from everything I have read, we have more than enough gas in Nigeria. So in terms of capacity to produce gas, it's not a problem.
It is a problem.
In what way?
Okay, so we have gas reserve in enormous quantity, but you have to provide the infrastructure. Don't forget that the IOC, their primary core aim is not gas, it's oil. Gas is just what they found when they're trying to extract oil. So they've not done investment for their own gas. So for them to do investment, it costs a lot of money. They have to be sure that they can sell. There's a market for it, but they have to be sure that they can get money for it. If you now look at power sector, why are we not getting gas for power sector? First of all, the market has not even been able to pay for what they've supplied. So how do you tell an OEC to go and invest in gas infrastructure when he's struggling to get money for the little gas that's sent to you? So there's need for huge infrastructure investment in gas. And we must do that if we want to have really sustainable power, in Nigeria. Because, like I told you, 18 out of about 26 is gas. So government, and I know they're thinking through it, they're developing a gas policy as a matter to help the power sector. It's a problem. You have to fund it. It's huge infrastructure costs. You have to address it.
So, as a practitioner in the sector, should we be investing more in the infrastructure that helps to make gas available for electricity and other infrastructure that makes it possible for us to not just generate but to transmit and distribute? Because some of the videos you see on television now shows the lines that are completely all over. It's spaghetti lines all over the place. So do you think that we should be investing in that rather than investing in subsidizing? Because if the infrastructure works and it makes possible for people to have access, you have 24 hours power supply, then it becomes easier for people to say, like Rufai said, we have electricity, so we'll pay for it.
So we have to do a couple of things together, simultaneously at the same time. You can't take subsidy out of it now because really, truly, I can't afford the true price of electricity. And yet, I would say maybe I'm middle class in Nigeria. But true, if you allow the true cost of electricity to hit me today, I'm already poorer than I was before, a few years down. So I can't afford it. So you have to keep subsidy there.
Some people said we can't afford 1,000 naira for petrol. We can't afford 1,300
because you see, that's a different argument. Because so you see, you can control the need for petrol. So now I have a bicycle. I cycle when it's safe to cycle. I have now.
Do you have a bicycle?
Yeah, I do. Okay. I have a racing bicycle. Now, I've also gone to buy a 1-liter engine car than my V6 car. So I could control of that, but I cannot control a switch in the house. I need it for security. I need it for my welfare. I need it even to run the economy. So it's a different argument, right? Okay. But also, you must invest in gas. You cannot bring power to a high volume without gas, because all our plants are
so the
gas.
argument a lot of people make against subsidies in electricity sector is the fact that most of your big users, industry users, do not use your national grid. Most of them have set up their own power infrastructures. Most of them have their own sub-power stations and all of that. And these are the bulk of your users. These are the people that, out of the close to 1.1 trillion that's supposed to come out of the system, but the 870 billion that the DISCO said they got from customers, at least those industry users will take about 300 or 400 billion of those. Not a lot of household power. That's why I kept on asking you that. Where is the household power in the first place? Most of those low-end guys, there's a lot of electricity theft going on in that sector. You know, so it's not the major guys that are paying for this have already sorted themselves out. What do you say about that?
Okay, so very true. And they did that for two reasons, not only because of cost, but majorly because of quality. And a lot of improvement and expansion project and voltage improvement mechanism is already going on as I speak. And that's why I mentioned earlier on that government gave loan to TCN through the DISCOs to reinforce and increase their infrastructure so that they can deliver quality power to Nigeria, especially those class that you mentioned. True. Now, those guys are...
So what are we paying the subsidies for? If the main manufacturing guys have already sorted their own power, it's not grid power.
Okay, so...
What are we paying the subsidies for? They're just channeling money to embed
it's true. It's true that some of the manufacturers who can fund it are self-generating, but you still have a good chunk of industry, small-scale industry, two-man industry, one-man industry.
And they run on NEPA?
Yes.
Consistently?
Yeah, consistently.
Not generators, not diesel?
Exactly. And that's why sometimes the ones that are manufactured in Nigeria would tell you their cost is high because they then have to depend on the grid. And also, they are even paying higher tariff than you and I, right? So there's still, we are underproducing in terms of electricity. Our demand as a country is so well over 30 megawatts, right? But we are managing with 4,000 megawatts because those guys who can afford to set up their own are setting it up.
But you forget that also. You see, that's the... Let's couch this conversation on the subsidy. Because also, what are we paying subsidy for close to 4,000 megawatts? Do we even get it? Because you forget that when you shoot all of this production onto the national grid, you have a moribund national grid that keeps collapsing like anything that collapses and shuts it out and all of that. So we are producing more power, but the grid can't even take it in the first place. So what are we paying subsidies for?
Okay, so let me tell you, at least for today, the 4,300 megawatt that we are producing, the grid is able to take it, both when I say the grid, from generation, transmission to distribution, right? We are well able to take that one. In fact, we have shortage of electricity in Nigeria as we speak, right? For the inefficiency of the grid itself, the good news is that since Q4 of 2022, there has never been grid collapse in Nigeria till date. That's a fact.
Really?
Oh yes. Yes.
What about the last grid? What about the last grid collapse that happened recently?
No. You know, you may have grid disturbances, but it's not a total collapse.
No, it was a total collapse. It went up to zero.
You see, I have access to the data, the TCN data.
Really?
Yeah, oh yes. This
it went up to zero.
Oh, you can follow. You can double.
I'm fact checking on that. No. We had system collapse
since Q4 of 2022.
System collapse, not the grid collapse.
Since Q4 of 2022 to now, there's
it happened 2 times recently.
We had just very recently.
We had just
but you can challenge that. You can
so
fact check.
We have to go.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an insightful conversation this morning, and of course, still a lot of questions remain unanswered. But you've thrown light on a number of important issues this morning with regards to power. Thank you, Mr. Adetunji Adeyeye.